Today, we're diving into something truly extraordinary. We're going on a journey, not just back in time, but deep inside the womb itself. Our map for this trip, a fascinating ancient Buddhist text that lays out the entire 38-week process of becoming a human being. Let's see what it has to say.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Before we had any kind of modern technology, how did people even begin to wrap their minds around what was happening inside the womb? It feels like a total mystery. Well, this ancient text offers an answer that is surprisingly detailed and honestly pretty poetic.
And here's where it all comes from. The tradition says these words were spoken by the Buddha himself. The text is called the Sutra on Being in the Womb, and believe me, it's way more than just a biological account. It's really a deep, philosophical look at our very first moments of existence.
Okay, so first things first. How does this journey even get started? According to the Sutra, it's not as simple as just a physical union. A whole bunch of conditions have to be just right. The health of the parents, the timing, and something more. A kind of karmic connection, a special affinity between this new consciousness and the parents it's destined for.
This brings us to the most unique and central idea in the whole story, something called the karma wind. Now, we're not talking about literal wind. It's a metaphysical idea. Think of it as a series of specific vital forces, and week by week, these different winds are said to be the sculptors, the artists that shape the developing fetus. Each one has a name, and each one has a very specific job to do.
So, let's dive into those first 8 weeks. This is where the karma winds are doing some of their most dramatic work, taking what is basically a formless seed and turning it into something we can actually recognize as a human shape. You have to love the analogies they use here. They're so tangible. In week 1, the form is called Kalala, and it's described as being like fresh curd. Then by week 2, the pervading wind gets to work, creating Arbudha, which is like a thicker curd. Next, the womb-opening wind shapes it into something like a small pestle, and then by week 4, the gathering wind solidifies it into a form like a warm stone. You can almost picture it, can't you?
Week 5 is a game changer. This is where the upholding wind steps in and bam, the basic human silhouette appears. The sutra has this beautiful way of describing it, saying the head and forelimbs emerge like branches sprouting in spring rain. This is really the moment a distinct form finally takes shape.
And the next few weeks are all about refining that shape. So, in week 6, you have the nourishing wind, and it carves out the knees and elbows. Then comes week 7, the rotating wind, which forms the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet. And finally, by week 8, a flipping wind causes all 20 fingers and toes to sprout. You can really feel this methodical, step-by-step process unfolding.
So now that the outside is pretty much established, the karma winds turn their focus inward. This is where the really complex work begins, building the entire internal architecture of the body, all the organs, the vessels, the tendons, the whole shebang.
The level of detail here is just wow. In week 9, a dispersing wind opens up the 9 orifices, the eyes, ears, nose, and so on. A few weeks later, you have winds that are described as laying down the intestines and literally weaving a network of 900 sinews. The whole internal system is built so systematically, and it all culminates in week 20, when the solidifying wind comes in and constructs the entire skeleton.
And hey, if you want a sense of the sheer complexity we're talking about, get a load of this. In week 15, a lotus flower wind is said to create 20 major vessels. Okay, pretty cool. But then, these branch out into 80,000 minor vessels. 80,000! It's just an incredible image of our entire vascular network being formed.
Let's just go back to that skeleton for a second. The suture doesn't just say, and then bones appear. No, it gives a specific count. 20 bones for each hand, 24 ribs, 18 for the spine. Now, look, is it a perfect match with a modern anatomy textbook? Not quite, but that's not really the point, is it? The truly remarkable thing is the desire to be that specific, that detailed, all those centuries ago. It's just astounding.
All right, so now we're heading into the home stretch, the final trimester. The heavy construction is pretty much done. Now the focus shifts to growth, to refinement, and to something really profound, a change in the fetus's own awareness of its own situation.
So in week 27, the bending medicine wind comes in to put the finishing touches on the body. And this is where the text makes that direct link to karma, suggesting that your physical form, whether you're tall or short, strong or weak, is actually a reflection of your past actions. It even specifies the baby's position, males on the mother's right and females on the left.
This right here is maybe the most fascinating part of the whole journey. It's a psychological shift. Early on, around week 28, the fetus is said to have these inverted thoughts, these really pleasant, dreamlike feelings of being in a garden or floating in a spring. But by week 37, that illusion completely shatters. It's replaced by correct thoughts, the sudden, stark realization that the womb is actually a dark, confining prison. And according to the text, it's this very awakening that creates the powerful will to be born.
And that new desire to get out, well, it triggers the final act. In week 38, two last karma winds, the propelling wind and the downward moving wind. They work together to turn the baby head down, physically getting it into position for its journey out into the world.
So we've walked through this entire incredible 38-week process. But what's the big takeaway? What's the point of all this detail? Well, the sutra doesn't just end with a simple celebration of birth. It concludes with a much deeper, more challenging reflection on what this body of ours really is.
And here it is. This is the final thought-provoking message. The text asks us to see this whole intricate process not just as a miracle, but as our entry into a world of impermanence. This body, as beautifully formed as it is also the very thing that will experience sickness, old age, and suffering. It's a call to look beyond the purely physical and to think about the deeper nature of our existence.
So in the end, what we have here is part anatomical map, part philosophical poem. This ancient journey really forces you to look at your own body in a new light, not just as a biological fact, but as the result of a long, meaningful, and incredibly intricate process. It really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? How does knowing this story change the way you see your own beginning? Thanks for joining me.